Hello, Aubrey. What are we talking about on today's episode of IELTS Energy?
We are talking about speaking part 3. We see students get low scores in part 3 when they're not as formal as they need to be. You can't answer part 3 questions like you do part 1 questions. So I'm excited to show you guys some sample answers where you can really see the difference.
Yes, exactly. So I was recently talking to a friend that's an examiner. Um, and I was like, what are some of the biggest reasons why students aren't getting sevens on speaking, right? She's like, they're too casual. They're not using academic English, right? So remember, guys, that your score is based on your ability to show your range of communication. So yes, you have to be informal in part 1. It's appropriate. It matches the topics of the question. Part 3, totally different. So today we're going to show you that range. We are going to give you some sample answers of how one could answer part 3 questions informally slash poorly, right? And then we'll contrast that with a better, higher scoring part 3 answer. So stay until the end of today's episode, guys, because we are going to choose 3 vocabulary phrases we teach you today. And these 3 phrases are the ones you must write down so you can use them in your own IELTS speaking answers.
Yes, I love that. This you should be doing for every episode of IELTS Energy. Choose 3, maybe 4
Totally.
vocabulary terms to add to your list. Practice adding them to your answers. Don't be adding 10 to 15. You're never going to learn any of them. So we're
Nope.
highlighting the ones that you should mark down, but every episode you should do this.
I love it. That's a nice bonus little tip there, Aubrey. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this. This is going to be challenging. Okay,
Yeah.
so first we will give you an informal answer slash low scoring, and then we'll give you the better answer. So Aubrey, do you want to do the first informal answer?
Yes.
And I'll ask you the question. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the part 3 question. In a typical family, who plays the leading role? Ooh.
Oh man, I mean, what's typical anymore, right? That's kind of crazy. Like, I feel like it's totally outdated to say a family is typical because some families have 2 moms and some have 2 dads and some have no moms and all of that is typical anymore these days, right? I have my best friend, she's amazing. I love her to death. She's really super fun and she's a single mom. So that's a typical family too. So for her, the mom is the leading role. And then for a lot of other families,
You?
it's the dad.
Thank you. Was that difficult?
A little bit because I'm
Yeah.
like wanting to, I know it's a part 3 answer, so
I
I'm wanting
know.
to answer more formally and use
Exactly.
the academic
Right?
vocabulary I have. So it was kind of hard to force myself to do that.
Okay, but what I loved about that, guys, is Aubrey showed you exactly what examiners are hearing in part 3 and
Yeah.
why students are getting lower scores, okay? Not showing that range. Taking the word from the question typical and being like, I don't know what else to say here. I'm going to repeat that. I'm just going to repeat mom, repeat dad, just using the simple vocab. You have good content and good ideas, but the vocabulary itself was repetitive and simple, right? And that's
Yep.
exactly the problem that we're hearing students having on IELTS. Okay, so I'm going to try and up level this answer. Aubrey, will you ask me that same part 3 question?
Yes, part 3, that's the key, right? All right, here we go. In a typical family, who plays the leading role?
Ooh, to be honest, I do not like this question. This is a loaded and stereotypical question. This question is making assumptions that I do not approve of, misogynistic assumptions. Because if you say typical family, I equate typical with the word traditional, which other people equate with the word normal, which I do not think that families and gender roles have to be put in these normal quote unquote typical boxes anymore. So if I'm going to answer this truthfully, honestly, according to my personal experience, there is no typical family role these days. The families that I know, the moms and the dads, regardless of gender, they undertake chores that suit their abilities and not their traditional gender roles, right? So many of the moms are the breadwinners. They are the ones that work and contribute to the family income, while the dads are the ones that stay at home, do the cooking and cleaning. And I'm not saying that's typical either. I'm just saying there is a wide swath of possible leading roles in
Oh,
families.
man, this is so good, Jessica. I'm like, you guys, if you're on YouTube, you can see me furiously writing all of the amazing vocabulary. And on my answer, there was nothing for Jessica to write. I intentionally was not using impressive vocabulary, especially not this more academic, formal vocabulary that you need in your part three answers. So, first, loaded. That's a loaded question. It means like there's a lot to this culturally, social issues involved with this question.
Mm.
And then to say stereotypical, there's a great word to mean like there are stereotypes involved with the way this question is asked, right? And then misogynistic assumptions. Amazing, right? Misogyny is sexist, is assuming, a patriarchal society that men have the power and should be ruling the families, right? And if you can use the word misogynistic, guys, the examiner's like, bad nine, the bells
Bed
are going off
9
in there.
immediately.
And then the verb equate, spoiler alert, this is going to be one of our three later because it's going to be helpful in so many answers to instead of say, I think of, which is like band six, I equate typical with traditional. I equate the word typical with traditional,
So
right?
all
To say
so
like, it reminds me of this.
exactly. It's the same as this. Exactly.
It's
So
the
remember
same as
this
this.
word,
They're
guys.
equal.
Exactly, exactly. Because you could see that it comes from, it's related to the word equal. You know what that means. It means same. So equate is to say something is the same.
Right. And then undertake. I love this verb undertake. Instead of saying like they take on a lot of chores or they do a lot of chores, those are really low scoring verbs, to instead say they undertake chores. You're intentionally using a more formal, impressive academic verb here. And then to say that suits their abilities. This again is a really impressive verb to say you are suited to certain things. You have certain abilities. So you're doing something that is suited to your abilities. And then breadwinners, who is bringing in the most money, who is making the most income, and swath, a whole swath. Band nine. There's so much band nine vocabulary
Yeah,
here.
swath, that's easy to use, guys. It just means range. And I hear a lot of students saying range, right? Swath, range, spectrum. These are all paraphrases that mean the same thing, right? Okay, awesome. Okay, now I have to try to answer informally. This is gonna be fun. Let's do it.
Yes, good luck. Should schools teach both arts and science?
Uh, obviously, for sure. I mean, people need both, right? So, I mean, teaching art is cool because then students get to, like paint and make stuff, be creative maybe. But science is also cool. We need science. Kids need to learn science.
Nice. So good.
That was so
It's tricky.
hard
It's
to not
really
like
hard.
answer better.
I know. Guys, you can hear, first of all, Jessica's intentionally being really repetitive with the vocabulary, saying art and science again and again. Students do this, right? Maybe you're getting
Yes.
nervous or you just know, like, okay, this vocabulary from the question I know is correct.
Right.
It is difficult to come up with this more impressive academic vocabulary. So now you've heard the band six or lower answer.
So
I'm
bad.
going to try and give you one with some better vocabulary here.
All right, awesome. All right, Aubrey, should schools teach both arts and science?
I know that the crux of the issue here is a lot of people think arts should be removed from schools entirely. I strongly disagree. My father is an artist. This is his living, his lifeblood. He's always painted. He's an oil painter. And without it, my family would have been destitute. I mean, maybe he could have taught, but he wouldn't have been happy. So who knows what would have happened? Of course, sciences are vital as well. We need kids in engineering and science. We need rocket scientists. The aerospace field is exciting. And of course, we need all of this. But the arts, we need beauty in our world so that we can appreciate all that there is to be offered in this world.
Thank you. Wonderful. All right. Some of my favorite vocab, guys. And then we are going to give you the three vocabulary phrases or words that were best today that you must remember. So, real fast, my comments on Aubrey's answer crux of the issue. I love that. So the crux of something is just the most important point, the point that everything revolves around, right? The central point, the main point. So again, like you know how to use the main point, right? So just replace that with crux. And again, it comes in that phrase, the crux of the issue is. I love it. Someone's lifeblood is what it can be what supports them and gives them money to survive, but it could also be what most fuels their passion. And I think as Aubrey used it, it was kind of both, which I
Mm,
loved, right? So
mhm.
lifeblood can encompass anything that feeds you, right? Either keeps you alive literally or figuratively. And finally, the word destitute instead of very poor. Destitute is a great adjective. So, okay, let's get to our three best phrases today. Aubrey, you said that equate was one of them. Why
Yes,
is equate
definitely.
the first one?
So this is a band 9 verb, and mostly because it's so flexible. Add this to your vocabulary list. If you want to say, this makes me think of this, or these two things are equal, use this chunk. I equate blank with blank, right? These two things seem similar or the same to me.
Exactly, exactly. And we could use this if we throw back to Tuesday's episode. We talked about describing a country you've never been to, and you could be like, I've never been to. So I talked about Brazil in that episode. I could say like, I've never been to Brazil, but I equate it with Argentina because they're on the same continent or whatever.
Yeah.
So again, widely used. I am going to say the number 2 is the crux of the issue because it is such a band 9 phrase and it is easy to use, right? The main point of this issue is the main problem here is. Okay, so band 9 part 3 and writing task 2. The crux of the issue is. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and choose part 3. I mean, number 3 is misogynistic because it
Oh,
is
that's
such an
good.
impressive word. And I think, especially today, there are so many conversations, trending topics that have to do with this idea. So I'm gonna choose misogynistic. One more time, what does that mean, Aubrey?
Yeah, so this means male centered, really. Misogyny is this sexism where to think of the patriarchy being the right answer or the right model for a family or a society. So if you believe that is true, you could be called misogynistic. So we can call ideals misogynistic, or a person could be called misogynistic.
Practices could be misogynistic.
Yes.
Gender roles could be misogynistic. Yeah.
Statements are
Same
misogynistic. Yeah.
movies, books, whatever.
IELTS questions can be
I
misogynistic.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, misogynistic just it describes anything that does not like women.
Yes.
Boom. Okay. All right, Aubrey. Thank you, Aubrey, for joining me today on the show. And everyone, we will be back next Tuesday.
Awesome. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.